The galaxy had been at war for so long that even the stars seemed tired. For centuries, two mighty powers had battled across entire sectors of space. The Dominion of Krail, a vast empire built on conquest, and the Valari Union, a federation of free worlds struggling to survive. Their war was not a brief conflict of months or years. It was a grinding struggle that spanned lifetimes. Entire generations were born, lived, and died under the shadow of endless fighting. The Dominion of Krail was feared by all. Its fleets were massive, each ship a fortress armed with weapons strong enough to shatter moons. The Krail had risen from a harsh and unforgiving world, and their culture valued strength above all else. To them, mercy was weakness, and weakness had no place in the galaxy. Worlds that resisted were burned. Populations were enslaved or erased. It was a strategy of fear, and for centuries it worked. The Valari Union was different. They were a coalition of many species, some tall and slender, others short and broad, some insect-like, others aquatic. They valued cooperation, diplomacy, and knowledge. For a long time they had managed to hold their ground against the Krail by uniting their strengths. But unity had its limits. Against endless waves of Krail fleets, even the strongest alliances began to fracture. At last, the final battle came. It was fought in the Atharan Expanse, a cluster of stars where the Valari had hidden their last great fortress world. Hundreds of Krail warfleets arrived, blotting out the light of suns. The Valari fought desperately. Their ships formed walls of fire. Their soldiers defended every inch of ground, but they were outnumbered 100 to 1. For every Krail ship destroyed, 10 more replaced it. For every Krail soldier killed, more were bred and trained to fight. The Union's defenses fell one by one until only silence remained. When the last Valari flagship was destroyed, the Krail commander, Supreme Marshal Varrock, stood before his people and declared the war over. His words echoed across the galaxy in every channel, in every language, leaving no room for doubt. The Valari Union is finished. Their fleets are dust. Their worlds are ours. The Dominion of Krail now rules the stars. There is no power left to resist us, the Krail celebrated. On their homeworld, great cities held parades. In conquered territories, their soldiers raised banners over burning ruins. The galaxy trembled, for it seemed no one could challenge the Dominion anymore. But not all shared in the celebration. In the shadows of destroyed systems, scattered Valari survivors whispered among themselves. They did not believe it was truly the end. They had seen something the Krail ignored, something the Dominion dismissed as unimportant, a forgotten detail hidden in the chaos of war. Among the ruins of the Valari capital, in a hidden bunker buried deep beneath the surface, a small group of Union leaders gathered. They were tired, wounded, their spirits nearly broken, yet in their eyes still burned a faint light of hope. "We cannot win alone," said Counselor Sarath, her voice weary but firm. "But perhaps we were never meant to fight alone." The others turned to her. "What do you mean?" asked a scientist named Kalor, his many eyes glimmering. "Every ally we had has fallen. Who is left?" Sarath tapped a glowing star map on the table. A faint point of light blinked far away on the edge of the galactic chart. "There," she said, "a world the Krail have overlooked. A species young but promising. The humans of Earth." A silence fell across the chamber. Many had heard of this small species, though only in passing. They were said to be ambitious, restless, and quick to learn. But they were primitive by galactic standards. Their ships were small, their weapons outdated. What could they do against the endless armies of the Krail? "They are not ready," Kalor objected. "They barely know the galaxy exists. To ask them to fight, it would be madness," perhaps, Nisarath admitted. "But madness may be all we have left. The Krail believe they have already won. That arrogance is our only chance. If we can find a spark strong enough, perhaps it can grow into a fire the Dominion cannot put out." After a long silence, the survivors agreed. They had no fleets left, no armies to send. But they still had one thing the Krail could not crush: hope. And hope could travel faster than any warship. So a signal was prepared, a message carrying the history of the war, the cruelty of the Krail, and the desperate plea of the Valari Union. It was encoded, sent across hidden relays, and aimed at a distant world circling a yellow sun. The message ended with a single line: "If freedom itself means anything to you, then rise. For if we fall, the galaxy falls with us." Far away on a planet called Earth, the stars shone quietly in the night sky. Humanity went about its daily struggles. unaware of the war that had burned across the heavens for centuries. They built their cities, fought their own small conflicts, and dreamed of the stars, not knowing that soon the stars would call to them. The Dominion of Krail believed the war was finished. They believed they had broken the last enemy, but in declaring their victory too soon, they had made their greatest mistake. For humanity had not yet entered the war. And when they did, nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. The signal crossed the darkness of space like a lonely cry. It traveled through dust clouds, slipped past dead worlds, and rode upon invisible waves. For weeks it moved, carried across the vast emptiness until it reached the quiet solar system on the edge of the galaxy. There, circling a yellow star, it found its target, Earth. On Earth, life continued as usual. Nations argued, scientists studied, and explorers dreamed of reaching farther into space. Humanity had built colonies on the Moon and small stations on Mars, but they were still young among the stars. The greater galaxy did not know them, and they did not yet know the greater galaxy. That changed on a cold evening in an observatory high in the Andes Mountains. A small group of scientists were monitoring signals when the computers caught something strange. At first they thought it was a burst of static, but the pattern repeated, too precise to be natural. Dr. Elena Vargas leaned closer to the screen. "That isn't noise," she whispered. "It's a message." The team worked for days decoding the complex layers. When at last they uncovered the meaning, silence filled the observatory. The words were desperate, heavy with loss, yet burning with hope. "To the people of Earth, we are the Valari Union. We were many, but we are broken. The Dominion of Krail has conquered us. They will claim the galaxy, and then they will find you. You are not ready, but you are strong. Stronger than you know. If freedom matters to you, rise before it is too late." Elena sat back in her chair, trembling. She looked at the others. "It's real," she said. "We are not alone." The news spread quickly. Governments met in secret rooms. Leaders argued, some calling it a hoax, others fearing it was a trap. But the evidence was clear. The message was authentic. Somewhere out there, civilizations far older and more advanced had lived, fought, and died. At the United Nations, a council was called. Representatives of every major nation sat together, their faces serious. The Valari's message played once more, echoing through the great hall. When it ended, a heavy silence followed. Finally, General Marcus Hale of the Terran Defense Command stood. He was a tall man, gray at the temples, with eyes that carried the weight of experience. "We always knew this day would come," he said. "We dreamed of other worlds, but now those worlds have cried out to us. If this dominion is as cruel as the message says, we cannot ignore it. To do nothing is to wait for the storm to reach our own shores." Some argued that Earth should remain hidden, that humanity was too small to make a difference. Others believed this was destiny, the moment when humanity would step onto the galactic stage. In the end, a decision was made. Earth would answer. The reply was sent with care, a simple transmission carrying humanity's voice out into the stars. "We are the people of Earth. We have heard your call. If the galaxy faces darkness, we will not stand aside. We do not promise victory, but we promise we will fight. You are not alone." When the Valari survivors received the message, they wept. For the first time since their downfall, hope returned. A small envoy was dispatched, an old ship, battered but still flying. Its mission: reach Earth and meet these humans who had dared to answer. The ship arrived months later. It slipped quietly into Earth's orbit, watched by satellites and defense systems that trembled at the sight of something truly alien. Governments panicked, militaries prepared, but the Valari envoy made no hostile move. Instead, it broadcast a signal of peace. A landing was arranged in a remote desert far from cities but under heavy guard. Thousands of eyes watched from screens around the world as the alien ship descended, its silver hull gleaming under the sun. When the ramp lowered, 3 figures emerged. They were tall and slender, their skin faintly luminous, their eyes deep pools of violet. They moved gracefully, yet their faces carried sorrow. The leader stepped forward and spoke in careful English, learned from the record sent with humanity's reply. "We are the Valari," she said. "We come not as rulers but as friends. We ask not for your surrender, but for your courage. The Krail believe you are nothing. Show them they are wrong." The meeting that followed was cautious but historic. Scientists asked questions, soldiers remained alert, and leaders tried to measure the truth. The Valari spoke of the Dominion of Krail, Their vast armies, their endless fleets, their cruelty. They described how world after world had fallen, how the Union had burned, and how only a few survived. Yet when they spoke of humanity, their voices carried a spark. "You are young," said the Valari envoy, "but your history shows a spirit unlike any we have seen. You rise from hardship stronger. You turn weakness into strength. The Krail see only numbers and weapons, but we see something greater in you." General Hale leaned forward. "You believe we can stand against them?" The Valari envoy nodded. "Alone, perhaps not, but with you the galaxy may yet have a chance." The decision before humanity was heavy. To fight meant danger, perhaps even destruction. To refuse meant waiting until the Krail eventually found Earth. Unprepared, the debate was fierce, stretching for days, but one by one voices rose in favor of action. Not out of arrogance, but out of conviction. Humanity had always fought for survival. Against nature, against tyranny, against impossible odds. Why should this be different? At last, the United Council gave its answer. Earth would join the struggle. Humanity would not hide. Preparations began immediately. Shipyards that once built exploration vessels turned to war production. Scientists worked day and night with Valari advisors, adapting alien technology. Soldiers trained for battles beyond the stars. The first Terran fleets were small, fragile compared to the might of the Krail. But every ship carried determination as strong as steel. On the Moon, new bases rose. On Mars, new factories burned with life. Across Earth, people watched with a mix of fear and pride. For the first time in history, the world was united, not by conquest or empire, but by a shared purpose. Children pointed to the night sky and whispered about the battles to come. Poets wrote of courage among the stars, and soldiers swore an oath. They would not let humanity be remembered as silent victims of a forgotten war. As the first Terran fleet prepared to launch, General Hale stood before the crews. The men and women wore new uniforms, their faces a mixture of nerves and resolve. Hale's voice carried across the hangar. "Many of you wonder why we are here, why we fight for a galaxy that never knew us. The answer is simple. If the Krail conquer all, they will reach us eventually. We do not wait for chains to be placed on us. We break them before they are forged. Remember this, the Krail declared the war finished. They believe no one can stop them. But they have not yet met humanity." Cheers erupted, echoing against steel walls. The Valari standing nearby watched with astonishment. They had expected fear. Instead, they saw fire. On the day of launch, the first Terran fleet rose into the sky. Small ships, their hulls shining. Engines roaring, carrying humanity's promise into the unknown. Families watched from Earth, tears in their eyes, pride in their hearts. The Valari envoy watched too, whispering softly, "They are different. Perhaps this time the darkness will meet its match." Far away, the Dominion of Krail continued their celebrations, blind to the storm forming at the galaxy's edge. They laughed at the idea of resistance. They did not yet know that humanity had entered the war, and when they finally learned, it would be too late. The Dominion of Krail had ruled through fear for centuries. They had crushed countless species, shattered countless fleets, and burned entire worlds until no resistance remained. To them, the galaxy was already theirs, and no one dared to challenge that claim. When reports first reached the High Command about a new species called humans, the Krail leaders laughed. The messages described small fleets, primitive ships, and technology that was centuries behind Krail standards. Another desperate remnant, sneered Warlord Trask, commander of the Eastern fleets. "Let them scream and fight. It will make no difference. Their bones will join the others." Supreme Marshal Varrock, the conqueror of the Valari Union, agreed. "We will not waste our grand fleets on them. Send only a small detachment. That will be enough." So it began. The first contact between the Dominion of Krail and the humans of Earth. The first skirmish. The Krail sent 3 heavy cruisers, each one larger than the entire human fleet. Their mission was simple. Patrol the outer colonies, destroy anything that resisted, and send a message of terror. The cruisers entered a system where the humans had established a new mining station on an asteroid belt. Hundreds of workers were there, unarmed and untrained for battle. The Krail expected easy prey, but when their cruisers arrived, they were met not by silence but by a human strike group. Small corvettes and frigates darted from the shadows of asteroids. Their weapons were weaker, their armor thin, yet they attacked with shocking speed. The Krail captain scoffed. They rushed toward death. But the humans fought differently than any species the Krail had known. They did not line up for honorable duels of firepower. Instead, they hid among the rocks, used decoys, and targeted weak points. Swarms of drones confused Krail sensors while human ships dove in close, striking and retreating before the heavy cruisers could respond. When the battle ended, one Krail cruiser was a burning wreck, another disabled, and the third limping back into hyperspace. The humans had lost ships too, but the miners were saved. For the first time in centuries, a Krail attack had been repelled by a species no one had even considered worthy of notice. The story spread quickly. Across the galaxy, survivors of the Krail conquest whispered in awe, "The Terrans fight back." The Council of Doubt back on the Krail homeworld. The High Command received the news with anger and disbelief. "How is this possible?" demanded Warlord Trask. "3 cruisers lost to insects? They fight dishonorably," spat another commander. "Ambushes, tricks. They do not stand and face us in open battle." Marshal Varroc's eyes narrowed. He studied the battle reports carefully. The humans had used their weakness as a weapon. Where other species had tried to match the Krail's strength with strength, the humans had chosen a different path. "They are cunning," Varroc admitted, "but cunning will not save them. Send a proper fleet this time. We will crush this rebellion before it spreads. Humanity learns." Quickly, while the Krail planned, humanity was not idle. The Volari survivors shared what knowledge they had, and human scientists devoured it eagerly. Every piece of alien technology was taken apart, studied and rebuilt in ways no one expected. On Earth, factories thundered day and night. On Mars, engineers tested new weapons. Human pilots trained in simulators that recreated alien battlefields. Soldiers drilled in new tactics, blending old strategies with creative thinking. The Volari were astonished. "You adapt faster than any species we have known," said Envoy Sarath as she watched human engineers modify a captured Krail engine. "Where others fear new knowledge, you turn it into power within days." General Hale simply nodded. "That is what we do. We learn, and then we fight." The second encounter. The Krail returned with 10 warships, 5 heavy cruisers, and 5 escorts. This time they came prepared. They expected resistance and planned to crush it swiftly. They entered a system near Jupiter, where the humans had built their first orbital fortress. The Krail fleet advanced in tight formation, weapons blazing, but again the humans surprised them. Instead of meeting the enemy head-on, they lured them into a trap. Asteroids rigged with hidden explosives detonated around the Krail formation. The escorts were torn apart. Human frigates darted in and out, using the chaos to strike engines and power systems. The fortress itself unleashed a storm of missiles, guided by artificial intelligence that predicted Krail maneuvers with uncanny accuracy. The battle raged for hours. When it was over, 3 Krail cruisers were destroyed, 2 captured, and the rest fled. Humanity had lost ships again, but the fortress still stood and the system remained free. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. A new power had risen from nowhere, defying the Krail in open battle. Rebellion awakens. News of the human victory spread faster than the Krail could contain it. Worlds that had been conquered began to stir. Secret resistance groups, once silent, dared to fight again. They painted the word Terran on their walls, whispering it like a promise. In the slave camps of Orion, prisoners passed secret messages. "The Terrans are coming." On the ruined worlds of the Volari, survivors lifted their heads. "Perhaps we are not finished." Even among the Krail's own subject races, whispers grew. "The Dominion is not invincible." The Krail tried to silence these rumors with terror, but the more they crushed, the stronger the hope became. Humanity had lit a spark and it was spreading. The Krail's mistake in their arrogance, the Krail continued to underestimate humanity. They believed the humans' victories were luck, that soon their endless fleets would erase this nuisance. But Varroc, the Supreme Marshal, began to see the truth. He remembered how the Volari had once united many species against the Dominion, but the Volari had been predictable, bound by rules of honor and order. Humanity was different. They did not follow the same patterns. They were unpredictable, dangerous, and relentless. Perhaps, Varroc murmured in private, "We have awakened something worse than the Volari ever were. Humanity's spirit on Earth." People followed the war with a mixture of fear and pride. Every victory was celebrated, every loss mourned, but no one gave up. Families wrote letters to soldiers among the stars. Students studied science and engineering with new urgency, knowing their skills might be needed. Artists painted visions of Earthships flying beside alien allies. In the cities, posters appeared with bold words. The galaxy thinks we are weak. Prove them wrong. Humanity had found a new purpose. They were no longer alone in the universe, and that meant they had a responsibility to fight not just for themselves, but for every world that had fallen silent under Krail rule. The turning point. The Krail sent another fleet, this time 30 warships. But humanity did not face them alone. Valari ships repaired and rebuilt joined the battle. Small groups of rebels from other species also arrived, inspired by human courage. For the first time, the Krail faced not just a single species, but an alliance. And at the heart of it, leading the charge, were the humans. The battle was brutal. Human ships were damaged, Valari crews fell, but the Krail were forced to retreat once more. The Dominion had expected easy conquest, but instead they had found resistance that grew stronger with each fight. Across the stars, one truth became clear. Humanity had entered the war, and the Krail had underestimated them. The Dominion had declared victory too early. The humans were just beginning. The galaxy had begun to change. What once seemed eternal, the unshakable power of the Dominion of Krail, was no longer certain. Their fleet still numbered in the thousands. Their armies still stretched across countless worlds, but whispers of resistance grew louder with every passing day, and at the center of it all was humanity. No one had expected this small young species to rise so quickly. No one had believed they could stand against the Krail, yet battle after battle proved the impossible true. Humanity's victories were not only military, they were symbolic. They showed the galaxy that the Dominion could bleed. A new alliance on a hidden moon orbiting a dead star, leaders from scattered civilizations gathered. The Valari Union survivors, scarred and grieving, were there. Representatives from smaller species, those once enslaved by the Krail, attended in secret. And for the first time, humanity stood among them, not as observers but as equals. General Marcus Hale spoke for Earth. His voice was steady, carrying the weight of a leader who knew the cost of war. The Krail believe fear will keep us apart. That is how they have ruled for centuries. But together we are more than they can control. Humanity offers its fleets, its engineers, and its resolve. Will you stand with us? There was silence at first. Many feared the Krail's wrath, but slowly voices rose in agreement. The shattered pieces of the galaxy began to form something new, an alliance built on courage, not fear. The Valari envoy Sarath looked at Hale and smiled faintly. We tried to unite the stars once before, she said, but perhaps it was always meant to be you. The forge of innovation, humanity's greatest weapon, was not their numbers or their technology. It was their ability to adapt. In secret shipyards orbiting Mars, engineers worked day and night. They studied captured Krail vessels, learning their weaknesses. They blended Valari energy shields with human missile systems. They created hybrid warships, fast, unpredictable, and deadly. One design stood out, the Dauntless-class frigate. Smaller than a Krail cruiser but twice as maneuverable, it carried weapons designed to pierce Krail armor at close range. Entire squadrons of Dauntless ships were built in record time, manned by crews trained to fight like hunters instead of prey. The Valari marveled at humanity's speed. You take centuries of knowledge, Sarath said, and turn it into progress in months. This is why the Krail fear you. They do not understand how you move so quickly. The invasion of Dravos, the true test, came at Dravos, a system rich in resources and heavily guarded by the Krail. For years, its mines had fueled the Dominion's war machine. To strike it was unthinkable, yet that was exactly what humanity planned. The Alliance fleets gathered, human frigates, Valari cruisers, rebel raiders from conquered worlds. They were outnumbered, but they had something the Krail did not: imagination. The battle began with a feint. Human ships appeared on the edge of the system, drawing the Krail defenders outward. When the Dominion fleet gave chase, hidden Alliance ships emerged from asteroid fields, striking from unexpected angles. General Hale commanded from the flagship Resolute. Keep moving, he ordered. Don't give them the fight they want. Make them chase shadows. The Krail fought with raw strength, but their formations broke under the chaos. Human frigates darted close, unleashing missiles at point-blank range. Valari cruisers targeted supply ships, cutting off the enemy's lifelines. After 2 days of fighting, Dravos fell. For the first time in history, a Krail stronghold had been taken by force. The mines were seized, the workers freed, and the Dominion humiliated. Across the galaxy, hope burned brighter. The Krail counterattack. The victory at Dravos enraged the Dominion. Supreme Marshal Varrock himself took command of the response. He ordered one of the largest fleets ever assembled to strike directly at humanity's heart, Earth. It was a bold move. If Earth fell, humanity's courage would break and the alliance might collapse. Varrock was determined to end the threat before it grew further. When the Krail fleet entered the Sol system, its size stunned even the bravest defenders. Hundreds of ships darkened the stars, their weapons glowing with deadly power. But humanity was ready. They had known this day would come. The defense of Earth's orbit was a fortress. New space stations bristled with weapons. Fleets of Dauntless-class frigates waited in formation. Mines and automated drones filled the void. Every defense humanity had built was prepared for this moment. As the Krail advanced, the trap was sprung. Hidden satellites jammed their sensors. Decoy fleets lured them into crossfire zones. Human ships attacked in swarms, striking engines and retreating before the heavy cruisers could respond. From the surface of Earth, billions watched the sky, praying as battles raged above. Families huddled in shelters, children clutched small flags, and soldiers swore they would never allow their home to fall. The fighting was brutal. Entire squadrons of human ships were lost. Valari allies fell alongside them, but the Krail were unprepared for the depth of humanity's resolve. At last, after days of battle, the Dominion fleet was forced to retreat. Earth still stood. Humanity had faced the largest force the Krail could send, and won, the turning tide. The defeat shook the Dominion to its core. Never before had one of their grand fleets been beaten so decisively. For the first time in centuries, the Krail felt fear. Across the galaxy, enslaved worlds rose in rebellion. Secret resistance groups grew bolder, attacking Krail outposts and freeing prisoners. The phrase spread from system to system. The Terrans are coming. Even within the Dominion itself, doubt began to grow. Soldiers questioned their leaders. Governors feared uprisings. The once invincible empire was beginning to crack. Humanity's resolve on Earth, General Hale addressed the people. His voice carried across every screen, every station, every colony. "We have stood against the storm," he said. "The Dominion thought us weak, but we showed them the strength of free people united. This war is far from over, but today we have proven one thing. The tide has turned. The galaxy no longer belongs to fear. It belongs to those who fight for hope." His words spread far beyond Earth. To Valari survivors, to rebels in hidden caves, to workers chained in Krail mines, those words became a promise. Varrock's fury, Supreme Marshal Varrock, raged at the loss. His pride burned hotter than any star, but beneath his anger there was a shadow of worry. "These humans," he muttered, "they are not like the others. They do not break. They grow stronger with every battle." For the first time in his long life, Varrock wondered if the Dominion of Krail could truly be defeated, and if so, it would be humanity that delivered the final blow. The war was not over. Countless battles still lay ahead. But the balance had shifted. Humanity had defended its home, forged alliances, and shown the galaxy that the Krail were not invincible. The turning tide had begun. The war had entered a new stage. What had begun as a desperate rebellion had grown into a galaxy-wide movement. Humanity, once unknown beyond their own solar system, had become a beacon of hope for countless species crushed under the dominion of Krail. The Krail still had great power. Their fleet still numbered in the thousands, and their war engines still burned with relentless fury. But the battle at Earth had changed the balance. It had shown that the Dominion was not invincible, and that even the smallest species could challenge them if they fought with courage and unity. And humanity was proving that lesson every day. The call for a final stand, from hidden bases across the galaxy. Rebel forces gathered. Freed Valari worlds sent fleets. Enslaved planets armed themselves. Outcasts and survivors answered the call. Humanity became the symbol around which resistance rallied. General Hale called it the Alliance of the Free. Leaders met in orbit above Titan, where the greatest war council in history was formed. Human ships, Valari cruisers, and vessels from dozens of freed worlds surrounded the moon. "This war is no longer about survival," Hale said to the Council. "It is about ending the Dominion. If we do not act now, they will rebuild stronger than before. This is our moment. This is humanity's moment." There were debates, fears, and doubts. But when Hale ended with, "We either fight together, or we all die alone," the Council unanimously agreed. The plan was bold. The Alliance would strike at the Dominion's heart, the Krail homeworld of Vornax Prime. If it fell, the war would be over. The long march. The journey to Vornax Prime was long and dangerous. The fleet passed through systems still loyal to the Dominion. Every system was a test. Krail patrols, hidden traps, and deadly ambushes. The humans led with ingenuity. Dauntless frigates moved ahead to scout. Valari cruisers struck first in sudden raids. Every engagement taught the fleet new tactics. They became faster, smarter, stronger. Soldiers began to speak of humanity's determination with awe. "They don't just fight," said a Valari captain. "They adapt. They turn every danger into opportunity." The phrase human ingenuity became a rallying cry. Across the fleet, morale soared. The Alliance knew that they were not only fighting for victory, but for a new future. The Siege of Vornax Prime. When the fleet finally arrived at Vornax Prime, they faced the full might of the Dominion. The Krail had fortified their homeworld with thousands of warships and orbital defenses. It was a fortress built to last centuries, but the Alliance was ready. Humanity had prepared for this moment with everything they had learned. Engineers had built new weapons capable of piercing Krail armor. Scientists had developed shields that could withstand their worst attacks. Soldiers trained endlessly to face the final battle. From the flagship Resolute, General Hale addressed the fleet. "This is not just a battle for our survival. This is a battle for freedom itself. We fight for every world the Krail have enslaved. We fight so the galaxy will never kneel again. Today we make history." The fleet moved forward. The final battle. The sky above Vornax Prime was filled with fire. Thousands of ships clashed in a storm of energy and steel. The Krail fought with the fury of an empire defending its throne. But humanity and the Alliance fought with the fury of freedom itself. Human frigates weaved through enemy formations, striking key targets before vanishing into the chaos. Valari cruisers unleashed torrents of energy blasts. Raiders from conquered worlds swarmed the Dominion fleet. Every moment was a test of will and strategy. General Hale directed the battle from the heart of the fight. His voice carried in the fleet's communications. "Push forward. Break their lines. Today we end this war." The Krail fought back with unmatched brutality, but they were no longer unchallenged. The Alliance was stronger, faster, united. And then the final blow came. A coordinated strike by human and Valari forces breached the Krail's final defenses. The flagship of Supreme Marshal Varrock was destroyed in a brilliant explosion that lit the skies of Vornax Prime. The Dominion fleet began to collapse. One by one, their ships fell or fled. The war that had lasted centuries ended in that moment. Aftermath. When the smoke cleared, Vornax Prime was silent. The Dominion of Krail had been defeated. For the first time in its history, the galaxy was free of its rule. The leaders of the Alliance gathered above the shattered world. General Hale addressed them not as soldiers but as victors. "We did not fight for glory," he said. "We fought for every voice that was silenced. We fought for every world that lived in fear. Humanity did not enter this war for power. We entered it to protect the right of all beings to be free." The Valari envoy Sarath stepped forward. "You have done more than survive," she said. "You have inspired the galaxy. The mark of humanity will be remembered forever." Across the galaxy, celebrations erupted. Freed worlds rejoiced. Stories of humanity's courage spread to every corner. Statues were raised, songs were sung, and a new hope was born. Humanity's place in the years that followed, humanity became a guiding force in the galaxy. They did not conquer. They helped rebuild. They established schools for war-torn worlds. They shared knowledge, not domination. Humanity's fleets patrolled not to enslave, but to protect. For many, Earth became a symbol, the heart of the Alliance of the Free. A place where the galaxy's races met not as conquerors and subjects, but as equals. Children on countless worlds learned the stories of the Terrans, the species that rose when the galaxy had given up hope. They learned of battles where courage outweighed strength, of a species that turned weakness into power, of a people who refused to bow. A last message years later, deep in the archives of the Valari, a message was found. It was not a warning nor a battle plan, but a simple truth. When all others had fallen, humanity stood up. And because of them, the galaxy still has hope. For humanity, that was enough. They did not seek praise or glory. They sought only to ensure that freedom would never be taken for granted again. And so they kept watching the stars, ready for whatever challenge would come next. For humanity had left its mark. A mark of courage, a mark of unity, a mark that would last forever.